In this video, I have Mike Taylor with True Footage, and we'll be talking about the appraisals, the appraisal, the 5 things that you need to know about the appraisals in 2022. Not only changes, but the things that are very important when buying a house. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you for providing education for the market. It's super helpful for everybody.
Of course, my pleasure. Yeah, I wanted to get you in this video, in this interview, because you shared some bombs and some great information during our last Breakfast of Champions that we always do for our referral partners. And I wanted to share with more people, to make sure that everybody here in the local community has this information and is most up to date on what's going on with the appraisals and the appraisal process, what you look at as the appraiser, and so on. So I'm glad you're here today.
Absolutely. So we could jump in with the 5 things that changes in the industry, and just 5 things that you should know going into 2022 and going forward in the appraisal industry. Number 1 is a brand new one, and that is appraisal measurements are now standardized on all Fannie Mae loans. And so in the prior 90 years, as we've discussed before, when an appraisal kind of became what it is today, there were no measurement standards. An appraiser could measure a house however they wanted to. They could, most of them did it however their supervisor taught them, and how their supervisor taught them, because it's kind of a trade business like that. But now we do have a measurement standard. It's called ANSI, measurement standards. And I think 2 quick things that help people understand what ANSI does. Number 1, it's exterior dimensions. And so we go along the outside of the house, including masonry, including drywall. That is included in the square footage. Now, the question is why? Well, because that's how we can make it standardized and compare all houses to each other. We're just going to include all the exterior dimensions, and it's easier to obtain than, say, what an adjuster would do when they're doing flooring on an interior where they would need interior measurements. It's easier to obtain, and it's more standardized across all houses. Number 2, the stairwell is included on the second floor and kind of in a way on the first floor as well. So if you think about, we do the exterior dimensions, walk around the whole house, measure the whole perimeter, we would include that stairwell on that first floor. But then when we're also measuring the second floor, we act as if the stairwell is raised up along with the rest of the second floor, and we include those measurements as well. And so a lot of times, we talk about differences with tax records and what an appraiser comes up with. A lot of times it's the stairwell. It can add 70 square feet. You think about that crazy curved stairwell. We've got to figure that out. We've got to figure out those angles because it counts as square footage on the appraisal.
Oh yeah, I have that in my house too, so I totally get it.
It's not easy to do, but it's necessary to adhere to the standard. So, Number 2, time adjustments. So with time adjustments, first of all, we are allowed to make time adjustments. We are encouraged, and I would say that we are required to make time adjustments in an increasing or decreasing market. There are a lot of times, say 2017 through 2019, where the time adjustments would be minimal, and we might not even apply them unless a sale was over 6 months old. Something was a month or 2 months ago, the market hadn't changed very much. But as we all know, the market has changed rapidly over the last several years. And so we apply time adjustments sometimes across the board to every single comp. And we've discussed this before, but the contract date is the date that the meeting of the minds happened. That's when a willing buyer and a willing seller agreed upon a sales price. That doesn't happen when it closes. That happened back at the contract date. And so when we make time adjustments, we go back to that contract date. So say I'm appraising a property today, May 5th, and going back, our best comp is 2 months old. It closed in March. It went under contract in February. Well, that market could have increased 0.5% per month, 1% per month, 2% per month. And so we need to apply a 3-month time adjustment to that comp to figure out the current market value of the subject property. And so if there was, say, 1% appreciation per month, then we would need to do a 3% appreciation adjustment to that comp. I think that's commonly misunderstood in the industry, but that's how we deal with time adjustments.
Okay. And how far did you go out? What's the furthest you've ever gone out on the time adjustment?
Oh gosh, I've gone back over a year. I've gone back
A year.
yeah. If we're doing a complex property, we'll go back 3 years. Because
No way.
if that's
Oh,
the
wow.
nearest, most comparable barn dominium sale, we may
Right.
have to go back several years. But typically for mortgage transactions, we don't go back more than 6 months to a year. But as I've stated before, that is the easiest adjustment to come up with. Things like a bath adjustment, bedroom adjustment, sometimes that's a little bit arbitrary and it depends on the
Mhm.
data. But the time adjustment, it's like, I can see that in this market area, there's been a 20% increase over the last year. So I can apply that to each month, and it's the easiest
Right.
adjustment to support. So I like time adjustments personally.
Yeah, I didn't know you can go that far back. That's big. That's a big one.
As far as we need to get the right comps. So
Okay.
number three I wanted to go over is that cost does not equal value. And it goes in both directions. I think most of the time people think of it as, well, I used to use an example of $100,000 pool. Now that's not that unheard of. So let's say
Right.
$150,000 pool. It may not be worth quite $150,000 to the typical buyer in the market. And that's where we come in to determine what is a willing buyer willing to spend above and beyond a normal house without a pool for that pool. And that's how we would come up with a pool
Right.
adjustment.
Right.
But it also goes the other way. We know that house flippers a lot of times will go in and all they have to do is spend $2,000 cleaning up the house and then just say $30,000 putting in new countertops, appliances, and some vinyl flooring. And it could increase the value of the house $100,000. And so just because their costs were that low does not mean that the increase in value is that low as well. It could be much more depending on the market reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have to see what's sorry. Yeah. And they have to see what's common in the area, right? If the neighborhood, if every house has, granite countertops and this one was purchased without them, then, that's all, it's all added later. So yeah, I could see that.
Well said. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about appraisals, people ask us, well, my subject has this. And we say, well, it's not always about what your subject has, but what does everything else have? Does your subject have something that's very different in the market area? It may not add any value. If it's the only pool sale in an entire neighborhood, might be an over improvement,
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times it's dependent on the market and what the market dictates in that area.
Right. Right. No, that's great info. Thank you.
Yeah. So number four, another new thing, this is brand new. I think it started like March 17th, is desktop appraisals and purchases. This is
Desktop
something that
appraisals. Yes.
it
Yes.
seems like
Please, let's talk about that.
we've been trending in that direction for years, and they've been talking about it for years, and they finally have implemented it. And it's been a little bit slow so far, the implementation for it. But basically, if we have a 3D floor plan of the subject property and it qualifies for a desktop appraisal, which means it has certain criteria, we can link to a PDF that has that, but it's a certain amount of loan to value ratio. It's a 3D floor plan and certain other things. And the way that we would do it is we'd look at that floor plan, we would look at the pictures online, just like we do with the comps. And we would come up with an opinion of value based off of, hey, if this property really does look like these pictures, this is what it's worth. Now, obviously, it's a little bit higher risk than us actually having boots on the ground walking through the property. But for a lower risk loan, it's appropriate. And we're starting to see those get ordered a little bit. It hasn't been implemented quite as much, but I think it's definitely going to be in the future.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree.
And then the last thing is increasing markets that we want to touch on. Just since 2020, we've just seen this crazy increase. And, there's places like Austin. I grew up as an appraiser, appraising in Austin. And so I knew what 10% a year looked like in 2014, 2015, like that, and market increases. And because of that, we're starting to look at multiple offers. So if there are multiple offers in a purchase situation, then we definitely take those into account. That's what a willing buyer was offering to the seller. Now, can we give weight to that in the appraisal? We have to rely on the closed sales, but it is another data point for us. And I'll give you an example. A property that I know about recently, that the sales price was around $450, but they had two offers that were higher than that. And so when that agent presented me that information and those other offers, I could see, oh, so people were willing to pay even more than what this purchase price was. And so that's just further support for the value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And I get questions from our agents, referral partners all the time, like, hey, can I meet, listing agents especially, can I meet with the appraiser and can I provide them with some additional information as comps? Do they think that I can use them? Will they get upset if I give them some additional comps? Like, I don't want to tell them how to do their job, but they do ask, like, hey, can I meet with them? Here's how I came up with these numbers, with this figure, and would that be helpful? Is that helpful in any way?
Absolutely. And it's all about how we're approached. The old school days of the agent meeting you and saying, hey, we need it to be this. Right. That's kind of, we're starting to, all right, like I may have to back out from this one. I'm feeling a little bit of pressure. But if you're presenting your CMA, your comp, and to me, that's another professional presenting their information and data to me. And I respect that. And I definitely take that into account. And I will always look at it, whether it's sent via email or in person. I will say we run a paperless office. And so if you hand me a laminated thing with 50 pages of comps and things like that, I'm going to take a picture of them, but that thing's going in the trash. So I'd rather you just send me a PDF.
Just the PDF. PDF is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just recently appraised a new construction property that went under contract a year ago, and it was just over $1 million was the purchase price. And based on the new comps, which had bidding wars associated with it and things like that, we appraised the property at $1.5 million. And so it was $450,000 more than the contract price because the market had changed that much over that time period. It doesn't necessarily mean that entire market experienced a 40% appreciation.
Sure.
But based on those sales that we had available that were more recent with bidding wars and things like that, I mean, that's the value of the subject property.
Yeah, no, that's crazy times we live in right now. And it's always good to have the right professionals around you, right? So Mike, thank you so much for sharing with us. Great information. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of us is my personal email is mike.taylor@truefootage.tech. And I'm sure we can link that in the video. And then
I'll put it in the video.
Yeah. And email is the best way. If you call our phone number, my appraisal coordinator is very helpful and will point you in the right direction, but email is a better direct way to get a hold of me.
Sure. And yes, I'll put that information in here, put your information in the description as well. And again, thank you, Mike, so much. If you guys need to get a hold of him, please reach out to him. You could talk to him and just, he's just super cool. So thank you, Mike. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks, Peter.